You'd think ruling a country requires basic common sense. You'd be wrong. We are counting down the most delusional, drunk, and disastrous failures in history. These are the top 10 times leaders completely embarrassed themselves. Whipped ocean. Xerxes I of Persia was not a man accustomed to being told no, not even by the laws of physics. In 480 BC, the King of Kings launched a massive invasion of Greece, marching an army of hundreds of thousands to the Hellespont, a narrow strait separating Asia from Europe. To cross it, his engineers constructed two magnificent bridges made of flax and papyrus cables stretched across hundreds of ships. It was a marvel of ancient engineering, a testament to Persian might. But nature does not bow to emperors. Before the army could cross, a violent storm rose up, smashing the ships and shattering the bridges into driftwood. A normal leader would have blamed bad luck or simply ordered the bridges rebuilt. Xerxes, however, took it as a personal insult. In a fit of rage that has echoed through history, he ordered the Hellespont to be punished for its treachery. He commanded his soldiers to whip the sea 300 times with iron chains. As they lashed the waves, they were forced to shout curses at the water, calling it a bitter and salty river that had offended its master. He even threw a pair of shackles into the depths to symbolically enslave the ocean. To top off this tantrum, he had the engineers who built the bridges beheaded. It remains the ultimate example of imperial hubris, a man so deluded by his own power that he thought he could torture water into submission. Rabbit root. While Xerxes waged war on the elements, Napoleon Bonaparte found himself outmaneuvered by something far softer, but equally relentless. In July 1807, following the Treaty of Tilsit, the French emperor was at the zenith of his power. He had crushed the armies of Russia and Austria, redrawing the map of Europe at his whim. To celebrate, he ordered a rabbit hunt for his high command. His chief of staff, Alexandre Berthier, was tasked with the logistics and procured roughly 3,000 rabbits. However, Berthier made a fatal error. He bought domesticated farm rabbits instead of wild hares. When the cages were opened on the day of the hunt, the rabbits did not scatter in fear. Instead, they saw Napoleon and his generals as the people who brought the cabbage. The horde of 3,000 hungry bunnies charged the hunting party in a unified wave. They swarmed Napoleon, climbing up his boots and gnawing on his gold-embroidered jacket. The man who had stared down cannon fire at Austerlitz was reduced to frantically swatting at livestock with his bicorn hat. The rabbits were relentless, reportedly dividing into two wings to flank the emperor and cut off his retreat. Napoleon was forced to flee to his carriage, throwing bunnies out the window as they leaped in after him. It was a humiliating rout that proved even the greatest military genius could be defeated by poor logistics and hungry pets. Drunken oath. Napoleon's embarrassment was a result of a staff error, but Andrew Johnson's humiliation was entirely self-inflicted. On March 4, 1865, the United States was weary from 4 years of civil war. Abraham Lincoln's second inauguration was intended to be a solemn, dignified event to begin the process of national healing. Johnson, the vice president-elect, had other plans. Recovering from a bout of typhoid fever, he had been self-medicating with whiskey to steady his nerves before the ceremony. By the time he entered the Senate chamber, he was visibly intoxicated. His face was flushed, his gait was unsteady, and his speech was a disaster. Instead of a brief, respectful address, Johnson launched into a rambling, aggressive harangue about his humble origins. He began pointing fingers at the cabinet members in the front row, calling them out by name and demanding they acknowledge his rise to power. He famously forgot the name of the Secretary of the Navy, Gideon Welles, and had to ask someone nearby in a loud, slurred whisper. The spectacle was so mortifying that Lincoln, watching from the gallery with deep sorrow, reportedly told an aide, "Do not let Johnson speak outside." Johnson had to be hidden away at a friend's house for weeks to sober up, marking the beginning of a disastrous tenure that would eventually lead to him becoming the first president to be impeached. Pizza run. Alcohol has been the downfall of many leaders, but few have embarrassed their entire nation on the world stage quite like Boris Yeltsin. As the first president of the Russian Federation, Yeltsin was tasked with guiding a former superpower through a fragile transition to democracy. However, his tenure is often remembered for his chaotic, vodka-fueled antics. The absolute nadir occurred during a critical diplomatic summit in Washington, D.C. in 1994. President Bill Clinton was hosting Yeltsin at Blair House, the official guest residence. Late one night, Secret Service agents were terrified to discover the Russian president standing alone on Pennsylvania Avenue, clad only in his underwear, shouting at passing cars. When confronted, a confused and slurring Yeltsin explained that he was trying to hail a taxi because he wanted a pizza. The leader of a nuclear-armed state was wandering half-naked in a foreign capital, vulnerable and incoherent, just to get a slice of pepperoni. The very next night, he was mistaken for a drunken intruder by a guard in the basement of the guest house. These incidents were not just personal failings. They symbolized the chaotic and humiliating decline of Russian power in the 1990s, turning a once feared geopolitical rival into a global punchline. Premature victory. While Yeltsin's embarrassment was physical and immediate, George W. Bush's embarrassment was a slow-burning tragedy of optics and hubris. In May 2003, the Bush administration wanted a powerful visual to mark the end of major combat operations in Iraq. They orchestrated a theatrical landing on the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, where the president emerged from a Viking jet in a full flight suit, helmet under his arm, looking like a fighter ace. He delivered a triumphant speech beneath a massive banner that read, "Mission Accomplished." It was designed to be the defining image of his victory. Instead, it became the defining image of his failure. The war was not over. In fact, the insurgency was just beginning. In the years that followed, the conflict spiraled into a brutal sectarian civil war that claimed thousands of American lives and hundreds of thousands of Iraqi lives. The banner became a haunt for the administration, a symbol of catastrophic prematurity and a lack of foresight. Every time violence flared in Iraq over the next decade, that image of the president celebrating under the "Mission Accomplished" mortuary sign was resurfaced by critics. Bush later admitted that using the sign was a mistake, but the damage was done. He had claimed victory in the first inning of a game that would drag on for years, creating one of the most ironic and cringeworthy moments in presidential history. Horse fall. Dictators rely on an image of superhuman perfection to maintain control, which is why Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov's fall was so devastating. The leader of Turkmenistan had spent years building a bizarre cult of personality, portraying himself as a master of all trades: a surgeon, a DJ, a race car driver, and a horse whisperer. In 2013, during the Day of the Horse, he decided to prove his equestrian skills by entering a professional race with an $11 million prize. For the first few laps, the other jockeys clearly held back, allowing the dear leader to take the lead. But reality intervened near the finish line. His horse, Bear Karar, stumbled, and the president was launched over the animal's neck, face-planting into the dirt with sickening force. The stadium fell into a terrified silence. Security guards in black suits swarmed the track, not to help the horse, but to frantically check if their autocrat was dead. When he finally regained consciousness, the audience was forced to applaud his skill. The state apparatus immediately went into damage control, scrubbing the footage from TV and checking passengers' phones at the airport to ensure no video left the country. The clip leaked anyway. The image of the infallible protector eating dirt destroyed the illusion of his perfection and exposed the fragility of a regime that relied on lies to survive. Fake fines. While Berdimuhamedov tried to hide his failure, Vladimir Putin tried to manufacture a success, resulting in an equally embarrassing exposure. The Russian president has long cultivated an image of rugged masculinity, releasing photos of himself hunting, fishing, and riding bare-chested. In 2011, he attempted to add archaeologist to his resume. During a visit to the Taman Peninsula, Putin donned a wetsuit and dove into the shallow waters of the Black Sea. Remarkably, moments later, he emerged holding two ancient Greek amphorae, jugs, dating back to the 6th century BC. He claimed to have simply found them on the sea floor, partially buried in the sand. Russian state media hailed it as a miraculous discovery. However, the internet is not easily fooled. Experts and laypeople alike immediately noticed that the urns were spotless. They had no algae, no barnacles, and no encrustation, impossible for ceramics that had supposedly been underwater for 2,000 years. They looked like they had been dusted off from a museum shelf, because they had been. Under pressure, Putin's spokesman eventually admitted the obvious. The artifacts had been planted there by archaeologists days earlier for Putin to grab. The stunt backfired, turning the tough guy leader into a subject of ridicule for needing a staged treasure hunt to boost his ego. A bad Photoshop. Staging a fake event is bad, but trying to alter reality with Photoshop is a desperate move that rarely ends well. In 2010, Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak was an aging autocrat clinging to power and desperate to appear relevant on the global stage. During peace talks at the White House, a press photo was taken showing President Obama, King Abdullah II of Jordan, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas walking down a red carpet in a V formation. In reality, Mubarak was trailing behind the group on the far left, looking marginalized. This was unacceptable to the editors of Egypt's state-run newspaper, Al Ahram. They couldn't show their leader lagging behind, so in a move of breathtaking clumsiness, they photoshopped the image. They cut Mubarak out and pasted him at the very front of the group, leading the world leaders. The edit was technically poor. His stride looked unnatural, and the lighting didn't match. But the intent was clear. When the real photo surfaced, the side-by-side comparison went viral. It became a perfect metaphor for his regime, a fragile dictatorship that cared more about the appearance of power than the reality of it. The Photoshop pharaoh was mocked relentlessly, foreshadowing his toppling in the Arab Spring just months later. Let us win. Dictators can suppress embarrassment for a while, but in a democracy, humiliation is swift and brutal. Liz Truss became the British Prime Minister in September 2022 with a promise to revitalize the economy through Trussonomics, a plan involving massive unfunded tax cuts for the wealthy. She claimed this would spur growth. Instead, it spurred panic. The British pound crashed to record lows against the dollar, and the cost of government borrowing skyrocketed, nearly causing pension funds to collapse. The Bank of England had to intervene with an emergency bailout to save the financial system from the Prime Minister's own policies. As her authority disintegrated, the tabloid Daily Star set up a live stream of a head of iceberg lettuce next to a framed photo of Truss, asking the nation, "Who will last longer?" The lettuce became a global sensation, attracting thousands of viewers who watched the vegetable slowly wilt as Truss's government crumbled. The lettuce won. Truss resigned after just 49 days, making her the shortest-serving prime minister in British history. She left office not just as a failure, but as a joke, forever associated with a salad ingredient that had a longer shelf life than her premiership. Beaks, Sparrow War. While Liz Truss only killed the economy, Mao Zedong's embarrassment killed millions, proving that ignorance at the highest level is the most dangerous force on Earth. In 1958, as part of his Great Leap Forward, Mao decided that nature itself needed to be brought in line with communist ideology. He identified 4 pests that were holding China back: rats, flies, mosquitoes, and sparrows. He reasoned that sparrows ate grain seeds and were therefore stealing the people's food. He ordered a national mobilization to exterminate them. The entire country was mobilized to bang pots and pans, wave flags, and shout to keep the birds from landing until they dropped dead from exhaustion. Nests were torn down and eggs smashed. The campaign was a success. The sparrow population was decimated. But Mao had ignored a basic biological fact. Sparrows don't just eat grain, they eat insects. With their natural predator gone, locust populations exploded. The insects swarmed across the country in biblical numbers, devouring crops with zero resistance. The resulting ecological imbalance was a key driver of the Great Chinese Famine, which killed between 15 and 45 million people. It remains the deadliest example of the Dunning-Kruger effect in history, a leader who was so confident in his own genius that he declared war on an ecosystem and lost. We often fear the malice of kings, but we should really fear their incompetence. As history shows, you don't need a foreign enemy to burn down a kingdom. Just a crown, a bad idea, and the confidence to be wrong.